We use everything from Slack to, depending on the client, right? A lot of the clients we have, they semi have a marketing department. So a lot of times they're not your startups. They're smaller, but they're not necessarily your one-man show. So a lot of times they have either Slack, they have Trello or Skype or Teams or Google. So we would implement ourselves into their chat channels to communicate. Sometimes we have to hop on a call and we really do a Zoom and we do a 30-minute deep dive and give them some training. And that's part of our onboarding process as well. So we do charge a fee. So it's not free because I feel your time's worth money. And so every time they hop on a call with us, it's part of that onboarding package.
Today, I am thrilled to be joined by Kevin Kwok. If you don't know Kevin, he's the founder of J29 Creative Group in Kansas City, which is a growth architect and passionate marketing firm. And so is Kevin because he has over a decade in digital experience. With a triple background in sales, technology, and marketing, his agency is able to seamlessly navigate the digital landscape for themselves and their clients. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Brooke.
So excited to talk to you. As one salesperson to another, I'm very excited about this conversation. So essentially, we're going to be talking about the importance of client communication and setting the proper expectations because, as you and I have talked about now in the green room and on our pre-call, it's very important to set things right from the beginning.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So let's jump right in with the first question, which is, what made you decide to start your own agency?
Well, just like most agency owners, you never plan to be a digital marketing agency. So pretty much I was a marketing director for a corporation that does international logistics software. And at the time, that company was designed to sell. And I was already consulting clients on the side with marketing. And my wife was like, hey, you love business. We've owned businesses before. Do you really want to go back to an 8-to-5 job? And I thought about it, at the time we had, an infant and we were like, okay, let's take the chance and just take the leap. It was just when social media was starting to get popular. So it was a good timing. Yep.
That's awesome. And apparently the decision worked out well.
Absolutely. Yep. We're going into our 10th year. So
that's amazing. Congratulations. 10 is a long time, especially in our crazy world. And tell everybody who's watching or listening, what kind of clients do you serve?
Yeah, so it was a wake-up call. So during when COVID hit, it really allowed our team to really analyze what was the most gratifying, right? I always say we started chasing elephants. So 2 years into our agency, we're growing by 300%. So experiencing some fast growth. So we started, hey, let's get larger accounts, right? But during COVID, it was a wake-up call because all the larger accounts were the ones that paused. So when accounts are paying you $20,000, $30,000 a month and they pause, that takes a real impact on your revenue. And it really hurt. And what we notice is all the clients that help us out during the beginning stages of our agency, all those people wanted to do stuff, right? Because they're small business owners. So we actually shifted in 2021. We decided we want to focus on small to mid-sized markets only. So all our clients are 20 million and below.
Yeah. I love that you saw that as a moment to pivot, right? It was like probably scary, right? But at the same time, you were like, hey, there's an opportunity here for us to learn from this and pivot and still continue to grow.
Yep.
Love that. So let me know, with your unique background, right? You've got sales, you've got technology, you've got marketing. How do you think you approach client communication differently?
Yeah. I'm a firm believer in the biggest differentiator for any agency is communication and also customer service. Yeah. They have to be your number one priority because people don't understand what we do. So a lot of times it takes educating them. So for me, I'm really big on our onboarding process and just being able to hold their hands, but not only that, and set expectations. I think it's so important having an upfront agreement with your client. Hey, this is what we expect from you as well. This is a true partnership. And until they truly understand and get it in their head, a lot of times clients really, they just think, hey, I just want marketing. But what does that really mean? Because you and I both know, Brooke, there's so many different ways to market a business and so many tools, especially today.
Yeah, I love that you said hold their hand, because part of what we say at B Squared Media is we're hand holders, we're cheerleaders, we're educators, right? So you're speaking directly to my heart. But I think it's so important to understand, I guess it's empathy that we're talking about, like being able to put yourself into the client's shoes, because just like you said, like marketing could mean so many different things. And it's so different between, from person to person, right? What does marketing mean to you? What does marketing mean to me? What does marketing mean to our clients? So what strategy would you say you use to set up and manage those realistic expectations with new clients from the outset? Like, is this written in like a scope of work of what they will do and what you will do? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, before onboarding even starts, right, we have a list of questionnaires that we send out to our clients. So it asks us everything from like, hey, what's your expectation from us? What's your understanding of social media? And then we have some, kind of multiple choice, type answers. So they fill out this form before we even meet with them. And then when we meet, we actually do about a 2-hour onboarding session where we dive into messaging. What is your brand? And some of our clients don't have a brand, right? They don't even know, we don't have a brand guideline. Then it opens up to conversation. Hey, do you need us to create one, right? It becomes this upsell opportunity. But if they do have one, then we take a look at that. We even go as far as looking at Pinterest boards and look at, hey, what's the look and feel that you're looking for? What do you see that you like, right? So it's really diving in. And then we have these heart-to-heart conversations too, right? Because, I would say 75% of the clients would say, hey, lead gen.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Then we look at them and go, hey, what does lead gen mean to you? And then I almost dummy it down to them, depending on the industry they're in. I give them analogies that they can relate to. Just like if they're fitness, a gym or a personal trainer, I would be like, it's like me telling you, I just want to lose weight, right?
All right.
That's pretty much what you're telling me, lead gen. But how are we going to get there? Are you going to partner with me? Are you going to do my workouts I give you? If I tell you you need to be on a video 3 times, in a day, are you going to do it? And if you're going to tell me no, I'll give them an analogy back. If I eat my ice cream at night and I don't work out and maybe show up every once in a while, am I going to get the results that you're selling me on? Most likely not.
So good. I love that analogy so much. It just makes so much sense. And I love that you put it in the perspective of, the client or the industry that you're working with. What about when it comes to, what? I want to get down in the weeds for 1 second on something you said. When you say they fill out like this intake form before you have the 2-hour onboarding, does this intake form happen? I'm assuming you have like some sort of like consultation call or something like with the leads as they come in. And then if they're qualified leads, or if you like feel like it's a qualified lead, then they go to the intake form. Like, give me a little bit more on the process there.
Okay, perfect. So most people reach out to our agency. So the first thing we do is they get connected to one of our account executives. Our account executive schedules a call. Then our team jumps on and we just get to know them. Conversations like, hey, what are you looking for? What's been challenging? What do you like about marketing? And I would say 8 out of 10 times they had a bad experience with another agency. So they come to us and then we'll go, so what do you not like about your current agency? So we get a lot of information gathering up front. Then we schedule another call to just get to know their needs if we found that they're interested in having us as an agency of record. Then from there, we send them out a proposal. Hey, this is what our recommendation, this is what we feel will work for you within your budget, right? And then from there, they sign the contract. Then we have our intake form and onboard.
Got it. Thanks for clarifying. I just think that's helpful, especially, for anybody who's watching or listening and they're new. That process may really be eye-opening and helpful for them.
And having an agreement is so important. So for those who are new to the agency world or even freelancing, right? If you don't have a contract on paper and no one signs it, how do you know what the expectation is? It's just he said, she said, right?
Yeah. I've met a few consultants in the past or worked with a few who've said like, oh, I just do things on a handshake because I trust you and you trust me. And I'm like, no, that's not going to work, right? Because then, like you said, like, how do you combat them coming back and saying, well, you're going to create images for me anytime I ask? Well, if I don't have something signed that says, no, we only create 10 images for you every month, right? How do you combat that? So I agree. What about specific communication techniques with clients? So what do you feel like, again, if you were giving advice to anyone, whether they're new or not, what's been the most effective, do you feel, communication channels when you're maintaining client relationships?
We use everything from Slack to, depending on the client, right? A lot of the clients we have, they semi have a marketing department. So a lot of times they're not your startups. They're smaller, but they're not necessarily your one-man show. So a lot of times they have either Slack, they have Trello or Skype or Teams or Google. So we would implement ourselves into their chat channels to communicate. But if they don't, our team is on Skype because I also run. We have an agency here in the US, but we also have a team in the Philippines.
Got it. So I like that too, because it makes sense to put yourself like, hey, client, you probably already have some sort of communication channel going, some sort of style of communication. Slot us in, which makes it a lot less scary or complicated for the client.
Yep.
Yeah, I like that a lot too. What about the technical aspects, right? So you're saying you have an agency here, you have an agency in the Philippines. There's obviously a lot of technical aspects to what we do as digital marketers. So how do you balance that like technical piece, like using Skype or Google or Slack or whatever it may be, with the client expectations? Like, how does that all come together for like really good communication with clients?
Yeah. So some of our clients are, we're in their channels, so they already know what they're doing. But if not, sometimes I have to hop on a call and we really do a Zoom and we do a 30-minute deep dive and give them some training. And that's part of our onboarding process as well. So we do charge a fee. So it's not free because I feel your time's worth money. And so every time they hop on a call with us, it's part of that onboarding package.
Yeah. Smart. I like that it's part of the onboarding package too. So you can kind of very early on say like, hey, you don't have a channel. We've decided we're going to use this channel and let us walk you through it so you feel comfortable before we move on to the next thing.
And that is part of that intake form as well, right?
Oh,
so we allow them to know that, hey, the onboarding process is based on this intake form. Like, hey, do you currently have a channel? Do you use Dropbox or Google for your creative assets? How is that handled? And we'll dictate what type of onboarding based on that. Yep.
Smart. Really smart. So let's talk about situations where maybe the client expectations aren't exactly aligned with the realities of the project, right? You've signed off on the agreement, the scope of work's there, but the client still isn't kind of understanding what their part of the expectations are, or they're wanting more out of you that goes beyond scope. How do you handle that?
Yeah, I've learned over the years, just as much as, the clients choose us, you also need to choose them, right? Mm-hmm. There's no sense being in a bad relationship and get abused. So for me, it's almost like dating, right? It has to be mutual. And it's nice to have that income, but it's definitely not worth it because for every client you lose, you'll pick up 2 more. So for me, it's just making, and we know we've been in business long enough. We know through our onboarding process, typically who's going to be a good client. And sometimes we are very upfront in telling them. And I tell my employees too, like, I am very big brother type boss. I will jump on a call and tell my clients, hey, that's not the way we treat our employees. And if you could talk to my employees that way, hey, I don't think this is a good fit.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm just feeling all the warm and fuzzies that you said that because I feel the same way. I mean, it's only happened twice in the 12 years we've been in business, but twice I've had to get on the phone with people and be like, look, it's during onboarding. It's very early on. But like we have a recording. I literally have you on recording, saying these things or doing these things to our team. And unfortunately, we're just not going to be able to work together because that's not how we operate. And, I feel like a lot of times they backpedal. I don't know if you've experienced this too, but they backpedal and they're like, oh, no, it's taken the wrong way or I didn't mean it. But like, there really are no second chances for me when it comes to how you treat other people. Would you agree?
I agree 100%.
Yeah, I think, and that's good advice too, whether you're, a veteran or you're a newbie, you really have to draw a line in what you will and won't tolerate with clients, right? They can get upset. They can especially get upset if you made a mistake. But being upset and speaking down to or saying nasty things to someone, 2 totally different things, right?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let's talk about technology. What does your MarTech stack look like? Are you willing to share any of your favorite tools that you work with that help you with communication and especially communication with clients?
Yeah, I'm open. Like, we do everything from, we have used Trello for project management. We're on Skype a lot, but we also use, like the premium version of ChatGPT. It's learning how to use ChatGPT, right? Because a lot of times, I want to be very clear. Do not use it for social media content where you're cutting and pasting. It's a great tool for researching and helping you, but you still have to be a copywriter and come up with copy. And then we also use, a lot of tech tools as well. Everything from, we're pretty broad, like we just use, because we do have developers on our team, everything from custom tools to using things that's on the market.
Yeah. What about social media? Because you're a social media agency. Are there any social media tools that you just love or want to give like a shout out to?
Yeah, we use Agorapulse. We've been working with Emmerich since, when he started Agorapulse. So not very long after that, it was funny. There's a story behind it. So when I first started using Agorapulse, we thought he was the customer service guy.
Oh, that's so funny.
Because he would answer to all the emails. Right. And I actually went to Social Media World, a conference, and did all the videos for Agorapulse. And then we met Emmerich in person and we told him, we had no idea you were the CEO.
Oh my gosh, he's going to love this part of the call. I will make sure we tag him when this comes out because he will love this story. But that says a lot about, right, their client communication. He made sure that all the way to the tippy top, which is Emmerich, right? It's his company, that customer experience and customer support was, right there in front.
Exactly.
So I love that story. How do you, when it comes to transitioning from the sales process, and I'm curious because we're both salespeople, how do you make sure that the actual delivery of the service, right? Because you and I are salespeople or the account executive, as you mentioned earlier, they do all of that like front-loaded conversation and then they turn it over maybe to someone else to actually do the doing. So how do you make sure that delivery, that transfer in terms of communication is smooth and seamless?
Yeah, so I think that's where we pass the ball. I think that's where onboarding is so important, right?
Mm-hmm.
During the onboarding process, we allow the clients to know this is your go-to. This is my production lead. He heads up all of our video content. Stephanie is going to be our social media head. She heads up all social media. And these are your go-to people. They're going to be your best friends the next, however long your term is with us. And those are your go-to. And if there's any emergency, we have our account executives, right? Those are the people that are going to take care of your everyday needs, So I am very big on having management, right, underneath, right? That way I go to my managers and then it's on them to take care of their teams.
Yeah.
So,
Can you elaborate a tiny bit on that setup, that hierarchy? How does it work? So you're at the top and then how does it work from there?
yeah, so I'm at the top and then I also have my account executive team, which is everyday sales, working with day to day, making sure clients are happy, buying them coffee, taking them out to lunch, different things like that. But below that, then we have what I call department managers, right? So I have the production person, I have Henrik, who's in charge of my web stuff, and then I have Stephanie, who's head of social media. Then underneath them, they'll have their teams, right? So everyone's in silos, but I have meetings with just my team managers instead of everyone else, right?
Right. So then the communication internally sounds like it's really important to make sure that the communication externally is done so well.
Yeah, so it's so important, right? Whoever sells the account to gather as much information. That's why that intake form, we just had a meeting yesterday too. We're talking about what if they don't fill out the intake form, because we're experiencing that every once in a while, their last minute. So now we're making a new rule. If you don't fill out the intake form, we don't schedule your onboarding.
Yes. That's such a great tip. We had to do that as well, right? To get ready for onboarding and what we call our discovery call, we have to have that intake form filled out. And you're right. We would send it to them and things would get scheduled. And then all of a sudden we wouldn't have the information that we needed to have a great discovery call. We would kind of try to limp through the discovery call. And then we realized, much like you did, hey, no, we're not going to limp through this. You have to help us help you, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So tell me, will you let us peek into how that conversation went? Was it similar? And then now, what do you say in the communication to the client?
Yeah. So
we're to do this.
Yeah. So this is one of the requirements, and just as much we're partners with you, and you want your marketing to be successful, this is important. So unless you fill it out, we're not going to onboard you. So you're just pushing your marketing back. Right.
Yeah.
But when you're ready and you're taking an investment in your marketing and you're taking it seriously, because it also weeds out the bad clients too. If they're not seriously upfront, then they aren't going to take us seriously later on,
Yeah.
So,
yeah. No, I like it. So again, just to reiterate the process for everybody who's watching or listening, and maybe this is new to them. So you have the sales call. They get qualified, they get the agreement, they sign the agreement. And now the process is after they sign that agreement, they must fill out the intake form as the next step. And then and only then can they have their onboarding call as the next step.
Correct.
Yep. Yeah. Smart. So if you're listening, pause, write that down. What methods do you employ for effective feedback? Right? So feedback from the team about clients, but also feedback from clients about the team or about the service, etc.
Yeah. So we have our account executives that are, they have check-ins with clients on a usually weekly basis, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we also do quarterlies. Our quarterly is where they meet with the entire team. And typically, sometimes I'm in there. So the team that are working on that account, right?
Right.
So they're going to be there. So it's either on Zoom or it's face-to-face. So we get a lot of feedback during that time. But then we are also implementing now check-ins, just from someone that doesn't work with them. Just one of our admin people will just send in, hey, here's a checklist. What do you think? Because a lot of times the clients feel bad if they're working with someone all the time and they don't want to complain. So we aren't getting a true gauge. if our people are doing a good job. So it's almost nice to have someone that doesn't work with them just send a survey.
Yeah, I agree with that. So in a similar vein, we always have weekly calls with our clients, and we always say, how are we doing? And then their account manager would send the little quality assurance, let's call it, email, hey, it's a check-in. How are we doing? Click, click great, could do better, or what, needs improvement, or whatever it says, right?
Well, you'll like this too. And we started implementing another thing because you said, how do we check in? So internally, even from me, I'm like the CEO, right? So we do a bucket with our names, and pretty much we allow them to, our own team, to rate us. So it's non-biased, and then we tally out Kevin got just a 5, or whatever, that type of thing. So instead of I'm pointing fingers at, well, if a lot of people are saying, they're not enjoying working with you, and your points are we tally up and you have the lowest score out of everyone, maybe there's an issue, right?
Yeah.
First, it's going, oh, let's have a one-on-one meeting, because then people get offended or,
Right. I love that. So similar to you, we had to stop sending it through our AMs because clients didn't want to answer the question, right? So we started sending it through our chief service officer, who's, not a part of the day-to-day. But I love the idea of grading, a point system for everyone that they work with, right? Because it kind of gives you a temperature and a gauge. Maybe they love their account executive, but one of the community managers rubs them wrong. I mean, that's really smart advice. Can you share an example of when maybe poor communication, whether it was on your side, which I doubt, or the client side, misaligned expectations and led to some sort of challenge, either internally or with the client? And can you tell us, everybody who's watching or listening, what you learned from the experience and how they can learn from that as well?
Yeah, I think throughout the years, right, just doing this so long, the reason we have onboarding processes, intake forms, is out of hitting the wall, right?
Yeah.
So we had experiences back then when we didn't have those things in place, right? And it makes things very awkward for the client, right? Because it becomes this he said, she said. And a lot of times we do this day in and day out. So we're around marketing people. We live and breathe marketing, but our clients don't. They might be selling RVs or, selling medicine. It's a very different industry. So not having those expectations makes it very awkward. And sometimes it's not even their fault. We've learned, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of times they just don't understand, and they aren't educated in how social media is supposed to work, right? They just assume, because social media for business is very different than social media, even for personal brands or doing it for yourself, right? So they have this misconception. And the worst thing you can do is start earlier in our journey, social media journey. We would justify, why we're right or you're right. And then as we gotten better, and we're honestly, data don't lie. So everything has to be data driven or on paper, or there has to be some kind of processes to safeguard and protect yourself and also protect the client. Because a lot of times it's not their fault either. So there's so many experiences and so many stories we can tell you. And the truth is, I think there's times we miscommunicate. And until we have processes in place, it's hard to say who's right, who's wrong. And it makes it awkward for everyone.
Yeah. I really like the advice of data doesn't lie, right? Because it's so true. So much of marketing, including social media marketing, can be subjective, right? Or can be very soft in terms of return on investment. So that brings me to another question for you, which is also client communication, but in the way of reporting. How do you communicate through your reporting, those things that are black and white, like where it's not subjective, where you're saying like, look, because we did this, X happened, or because you didn't do this, Y happened.
Mm-hmm. So I think Google Analytics is our best friend. It's just understanding how Google Analytics work. And there's usually a pattern, and you can start mapping out those patterns. A perfect example would be like a client. He thought his reels were better than what we were doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But because a few of them had just way more views, right? Or it went viral. But then you also have to give it time. Marketing isn't measured in a week, 2 weeks. You have to justify it with 6 months, a year, longer term, right? Then it proves itself, right? A lot of times there's this false sense of success because of vanity metrics, or, hey, all of a sudden we get an influx of views, right? But that doesn't mean your marketing's good, right? You have to look at your analytics in 6 months or quarterly. And that's why we do quarterly meetups. Used to, we would do monthly, right? But in a month, it doesn't tell a good story. That's why I laugh when clients are like, oh, we've already invested in 2 months. Now our minimum is at least 90 days with our agency, because we can't really measure marketing in a month's time, right?
Right.
So I think scope is very important, and you have to give it enough time for marketing to work, and then just getting really good at understanding, like, what does your impressions mean, and how do you set up conversion goals, right? And then you have to explain to your clients, how do you measure opportunity, right? You can't tell me, I don't even know, unless someone fills out a form at J29. I can't say that due to my social media posts, somehow I sign a $10,000 a month account because of a live show I hop on with Bert. How do you measure that? And that's part of social media, is almost like mouth-to-mouth referral, right? Mm-hmm. So it's creating that buzz, and that's very hard to measure. So up front, you have to let your clients know, right? Because a lot of them, they're just measuring the numbers, the number of conversions that are going into a form. And every business is different. Some businesses are very heavily in form filling, or if you're buying a product, you can measure that. Others are very word of mouth type businesses. So you really have to differentiate and educate your clients on the data.
Yeah. And you mentioned Google Analytics. Is that the main analytics reporting tool that you use? Or are there any other reporting tools that you love?
Yeah, we utilize Agora Pulse's social media reporting as well. But now it's tied to Google Analytics, so it's kind of nice.
Yeah, that makes it really nice and easy. Awesome. I'll make sure we include all of these things and tools that we're dropping into the show notes, which if you're listening, the show notes happen on YouTube. So go out to the Social Media Examiner YouTube channel, check out Kevin's episode, and in the show notes underneath the video, you will see links to all of these tools that we're talking about. So, Kevin, final question here. What advice would you give to the new agency owners about the importance of client communication and how to manage those client expectations? Like, number one piece of advice is what?
Listen. I think a lot of times, being in our role, we're so excited to go, hey, here's this new thing you can do, and we don't hear the client. A lot of times they're giving you the answer, but we aren't listening because we already have the assumptions. This is what they need, but we aren't listening to what they really, really need. So listening takes really diving in, having that heart to heart, and really hearing their challenges, because sometimes they might want to do these things, but they don't have the manpower to do it. And we're just assuming they can. So then it fails anyway. So I think having the ear to really listen and allow your clients to be heard.
I think that is fantastic. I couldn't have said it better myself, honestly, because I thought you were going to say, like, make sure you have a scope or make sure you have, stuff written out in the agreement. But really, what you said is the most important piece of advice, even before any of the tools or the documents or whatever it is, which is just listen. Listen more than you talk, right?
Yep.
Oh, this has been amazing. I'm so glad we had this conversation. Tell everybody where they can find you if they want to connect with you, what you're working on, all of the good stuff that Kevin's up to today.
Yeah, so I'm a huge advocate with AAPI community. So I'm bringing Asian hustle to Kansas City. So we don't really have anything for Asian business owners. And also in the agency world, there's a lack of Asian agency owners. So I'm a big advocate of that. So I'm excited. And I'm also working on an app right now that will kind of change the way content is being produced. So very excited about that. And I'll tell people more. But you can follow us at J29 Creative, and that's my agency. And personally, you can find me on LinkedIn. It's Kevin Kwok, and then also Social Kwok for Instagram.
Awesome. This has been amazing. You're fantastic. And thank you for everything that you're doing with the API community and just pushing, everybody forward and making it more tangible to just be more diverse in the things that we do and who we work with too, right? So thank you for that. I appreciate it. Everybody, we will catch you on the next show.